The morning sun stretched long shadows across the military training grounds as Commander Jake Morrison walked around the advanced shooting range. 23 years of military service had sharpened his ability to notice things others overlooked, and something about the solitary figure at the far end caught his eye. While most personnel had finished their shooting tests hours earlier, someone remained there, working methodically with what looked like a Barrett.50 caliber rifle. Morrison had watched countless soldiers handle the massive weapon, but something about this person's method felt different. The movements were precise, deliberate, almost graceful in their execution. Each shot was followed by a careful adjustment, a moment of complete stillness, then another perfectly timed trigger squeeze that echoed across the empty range. As he got closer, Morrison realized the shooter was a woman, something that shouldn't have surprised him, yet still did considering the early hour and weapon choice. The Barrett wasn't exactly standard equipment for most military personnel, and even fewer could handle it with the kind of confidence this shooter was showing. Chen had arrived at the range before sunrise, as she always did. The daughter of a Taiwanese immigrant father and an American mother from Montana, she'd grown up around guns but never imagined her childhood talent would bring her to this point. Her father, Dr. Chen, had been a math professor who valued precision above everything else, while her mother, Rebecca, had been raised on a ranch where shooting was as natural as horseback riding. The blend of her father's analytical thinking and her mother's hands-on skills had created something special in Sarah. She treated shooting not just as a physical ability but as a math equation to be solved. Wind speed, humidity, temperature, bullet drop, Earth's rotation, all factors in a calculation she'd learned to balance naturally. Morrison stopped about 30 meters behind her, not wanting to break her focus. He observed as she made tiny adjustments to the scope, checked her shooting notebook, and settled into position again. The Barrett's sharp crack rang across the range, and through his binoculars, Morrison could see the target at 1,200 meters had been struck dead center. What impressed him wasn't just the accuracy. Plenty of military snipers could make that shot. It was the consistency. Shot after shot, the same exact placement, the same controlled breathing, the same smooth trigger squeeze. This wasn't practice for testing or skill maintenance. This was someone pushing limits. Sarah had joined the Army 3 years earlier, not from any intense desire for military fame, but because she needed direction and meaning after her father's death. The academic world he'd lived in felt hollow to her, full of theoretical debates that seemed detached from real impact. The military offered something solid, measurable outcomes that her analytical mind could value. Her initial training had shown her remarkable shooting abilities, but the Army's system had initially placed her in a communications role. Only through repeated requests and impressive test scores had she eventually been permitted to pursue sniper training. Even then, many instructors doubted whether someone of her small frame, she stood barely 5'4" and weighed 115 pounds, could effectively handle the larger weapons. They'd been mistaken. Morrison kept watching as Sarah completed what appeared to be a thorough evaluation of different ammunition types. She had multiple boxes of various 50 BMG rounds arranged beside her, each carefully labeled with handwritten notes about flight characteristics and speed measurement. This level of detail went far beyond standard military training. The shooting notebook beside her was filled with exact notations, wind readings, temperature records, humidity measurements, and most importantly, detailed impact information for each. Morrison had seen plenty of sniper logs in his time, but this one looked more like a scientific research paper than a military training record. As the morning went on, Morrison noticed Sarah extending her distance gradually. The targets that had started at 1,200 meters were now positioned at 1,500, then 1,800 meters. At each distance she fired a careful 5-shot pattern, recorded the information, made adjustments, and repeated the process. What Morrison didn't know was that Sarah had been following this methodical approach to long-range shooting for months, driven by more than just professional improvement. She was chasing something that most people would consider impossible, a shot that would redefine the limits of what could be accomplished with the Barrett platform. The inspiration had come from studying the longest confirmed sniper eliminations in military history. Names like Chris Kyle, Craig Harrison, and most recently a Canadian sniper who had achieved a hit at 3,540 meters in Iraq. Sarah had examined every detail of these record shots, studying weather conditions, equipment changes, and most importantly, the mathematical precision needed to reach such distances. Her background in mathematics, inherited from her father's influence, allowed her to tackle the problem differently than most military snipers. Where others relied mainly on experience and gut feeling, Sarah built detailed flight models that accounted for factors most shooters never thought about. Morrison decided to approach. As a SEAL commander, he'd worked with some of the finest snipers in the military, and he recognized exceptional talent when he saw it. He also noticed that Sarah's shooting stance and technique showed influences from multiple training schools, not just standard Army methods. "Impressive shooting," Morrison said quietly as he approached from behind, careful not to startle her during a shot sequence. Sarah looked back, immediately recognizing the SEAL insignia and the commanding presence that Morrison carried. She'd heard about the special operations teams that sometimes used this facility, but had never met one of their officers directly. "Thank you, sir," she replied, carefully securing her weapon and turning to face him properly. "Just working on some long-range consistency exercises." Morrison glanced at the targets through his binoculars, then at Sarah's shooting notebook. The precision of both the shooting and the record-keeping was immediately clear. "Mind if I ask what your longest confirmed shot has been?" Sarah hesitated. The honest answer would sound like showing off, and she'd learned that discussing her shooting achievements often led to doubt or unwanted attention. "I've been working on extending my effective range, sir, currently validating accuracy at distances beyond standard training limit." The careful answer told Morrison everything he needed to know. Sarah was being humble about something significant. He'd spent enough time around special operations snipers to recognize the signs of someone operating at an elite level. "What's your background before the Army?" Morrison asked, settling into a position where he could observe both Sarah and the range. "My father was a math professor. My mother grew up on a ranch in Montana. I learned shooting from her, analytical thinking from him," Sarah explained, unconsciously describing the combination that made her unique. Morrison nodded. The mix made sense given what he was observing. "And you're assigned where currently?" "Communications section, sir, but I've been approved for advanced shooting training and independent practice sessions," Sarah replied, gesturing toward the official paperwork clipped to her shooting kit. The paperwork was legitimate, but Morrison suspected there was more to the story. Someone in communications didn't typically have access to unlimited Barrett ammunition and extended range time without some kind of special arrangement or outstanding performance record. As they talked, Morrison noticed other details about Sarah's setup that impressed him. Her rifle had been modified with competition parts, a precision trigger, improved muzzle brake, and custom barrel work that suggested serious investment in accuracy. The scope was a high-end model that cost more than most soldiers earned in months. More importantly, her shooting accessories showed the attention to detail of someone who understood that long-range precision required controlling every possible factor. She had a portable weather station providing live environmental information, a rangefinder capable of accurate measurements beyond 2 miles, and even a small device for measuring rifle vibration that most military snipers had never seen. "Have you considered special operations training?" Morrison asked directly. Sarah looked surprised. "I hadn't really thought about it, sir. My current assignment keeps me pretty occupied, and I'm still learning." Morrison almost smiled. Sarah's definition of still learning apparently included methodically mastering long-range shooting techniques that most career snipers never attempted. Her modesty about her abilities was either genuine or extremely well rehearsed. "Would you mind if I observed a few more Morrison asked. "I'm always interested in seeing different approaches to long-range work." Sarah nodded, returning to her shooting position. Morrison positioned himself where he could observe her technique, while also watching the target impact area through a spotting scope. What he witnessed over the next hour changed his assessment of Sarah from impressive to extraordinary. Her shooting process was methodical to an almost scientific degree. Each shot was preceded by a careful check of her weather instruments, a review of her flight data, and a series of breathing exercises that indicated advanced training in precision shooting technique. More importantly, her shots consistently grouped within parameters that Morrison had previously seen only from the most elite military and competitive shooter. At 1,800 meters, using a platform that many considered barely capable of reliable accuracy at that range, Sarah was placing shots within a pattern that could be covered by a dinner plate. Morrison began to understand that he wasn't watching standard military training. This was someone pursuing a level of precision that went beyond normal operational needs. The question was whether Sarah understood the potential applications of her developing skills, or whether she was simply driven by the technical challenge of the shooting itself. As the session continued, Morrison found himself analyzing not just Sarah's shooting ability but her overall approach to the challenge. Her equipment choices, training methods, and methodical progression through different ranges all suggested someone with a long-term plan that extended far beyond basic skill. The final confirmation of Sarah's exceptional abilities came when she moved to a target positioned at 2,100 meters, a distance that pushed the Barrett platform toward its theoretical maximum effective range. Morrison watched through the spotting scope as Sarah's first shot impacted just inches from the target center, followed by 4 more shots that grouped within a circle smaller than Morrison would have believed possible. As Sarah packed her equipment with the same methodical precision she had applied to her shooting, Morrison made a decision that would change both their career. This level of skill needed to be properly developed and applied, and Sarah needed opportunities that her current assignment would never provide. "Sergeant Chen," Morrison said formally, "I'd like to discuss some advanced training opportunities that might interest you. Would you be available for a conversation about your career development sometime this week?" Sarah looked up from securing her rifle case, clearly surprised by the sudden shift toward formal career discussion. "Of course, sir. I'm always interested in professional development opportunity." Morrison handed her his card. "Call my office tomorrow. I think there might be some specialized training programs that would be a good fit for your particular skill set." As Morrison walked away from the range that morning, he was already mentally composing the phone calls he would need to make. Sarah Chen represented exactly the kind of exceptional individual that special operations units were always seeking. Someone with rare natural abilities enhanced by serious technical knowledge and an obvious dedication to excellence. What Morrison didn't yet realize was that Sarah's shooting abilities represented only the beginning of what would become a remarkable military career. Her methodical approach to mastering long-range precision would soon be tested under conditions far more challenging than any training range could provide. Sarah, meanwhile, packed her equipment while wondering what kind of opportunities a SEAL commander might have in mind for a communications specialist who spent her free time pushing the boundaries of long-range shooting. Her mathematical mind was already analyzing the possibilities, unaware that her life was about to take a direction she had never imagined. 6 months after that first meeting on the range, Sarah Chen found herself in a place she never could have imagined, sitting in a classified briefing room at a special operations facility, surrounded by some of the most elite snipers in the American military. The path from that morning conversation with Commander Morrison to this moment had been both swift and surreal. Morrison had kept his word about creating opportunity. Within a week of their range meeting, Sarah had been temporarily reassigned to a special training program that officially didn't exist. The program was designed to identify and develop exceptional shooting talent from across all military branches, bringing together individuals who showed potential for missions that required capabilities beyond standard sniper training. Sarah had excelled in ways that surprised even Morrison. Her mathematical background allowed her to quickly master advanced flight calculations that took most snipers years to develop instinctively. More importantly, her methodical approach to problem-solving proved invaluable when dealing with the complex environmental factors that affected extreme long-range shooting. The training had taken place at a remote facility in Nevada, where Sarah worked alongside seasoned snipers from Delta Force, Navy SEALs, and Army Special Forces. Initially, there had been doubt about the inclusion of a communications specialist with no combat experience. That doubt had disappeared during the first week of training. Sarah's performance on the advanced courses had been unprecedented. While other students struggled with shots beyond 1,500 meters, Sarah was consistently achieving first-round hits at distances approaching 2,500 meters. Her shooting notebooks had become reference materials that instructors used to demonstrate proper technique to other students. But it wasn't just her shooting ability that had impressed the training staff. Sarah's analytical approach to mission planning, her ability to calculate environmental effects in real time, and her methodical method for solving complex flight problems had marked her as exceptional even among elite operators. The briefing room where Sarah now sat represented the result of that training. Morrison had specifically requested her inclusion in a mission that would test every skill she had developed over the previous months. The operation involved a target that conventional approaches had failed to reach, requiring a shooting solution that pushed beyond established records for long-range precision. The target is a high-value individual operating from a compound in mountainous terrain, Morrison explained to the assembled team. Previous attempts at engagement have failed due to the extreme range and environmental challenges. Intelligence indicates that conventional approaches are not viable due to the security measures in place. Sarah studied the aerial photographs and terrain maps spread across the briefing table. The target location was positioned in a way that created a natural defensive advantage, surrounded by open terrain that made close approach impossible, but with elevated positions that offered potential shooting locations at extreme distances. "What's the range to target from the nearest workable position?" asked Master Sergeant Rodriguez, one of the Delta Force snipers who had become Sarah's mentor during training. "Minimum range is 3,100 meters. Morrison replied. "Maximum effective range from the optimal position is 3,247 meters." The room fell silent. Even among these elite operators, a shot at that distance represented something beyond normal operational limits. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized the implication. This wasn't just another training exercise or test. This was an opportunity to attempt something that would redefine what was considered possible in operational sniping. Environmental conditions. Sarah asked, her mathematical mind immediately beginning to process the flight challenges. High altitude, variable wind conditions typical of mountain terrain, temperature changes between dawn and midday that could affect flight significantly. Morrison detailed, the shot window will be limited due to the target's movement patterns and security protocol. Sarah began making calculations in her head, drawing on months of intensive training and years of studying extreme long-range flight patterns. The distance alone presented challenges that only a handful of shooters in the world had ever successfully overcome. Adding the environmental factors and operational constraints made this a problem that required perfect execution of everything she had learned. What platform will be available? Rodriguez asked, though Sarah suspected he already knew the answer. Modified Barrett M82A1 with custom barrel work and specialized ammunition. Morrison replied, the same configuration Sergeant Chen has been training with, enhanced based on her recommendations from the Nevada program. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and worry. The rifle Morrison was describing had been developed specifically around her shooting style and analytical approach to flight patterns. During training, she had worked closely with military gunsmiths to optimize every component for extreme range accuracy. The result was a weapon system that represented the cutting edge of what was possible with the Barrett platform. Over the following days, Sarah immersed herself in mission preparation with an intensity that impressed even her special operations teammates. She created detailed flight models that accounted for altitude effects, temperature gradients, and wind patterns specific to the target location. Her preparation went far beyond standard sniper procedures, incorporating mathematical analysis that treated the shot as an engineering problem to be solved. The team deployed to a forward operating base located approximately 50 kilometers from the target area. Sarah spent the first 2 days conducting detailed reconnaissance of potential shooting positions, using advanced optics to study wind patterns and environmental conditions at different times of day. Her methodical approach to mission preparation had become legendary during training, but seeing it applied to operational conditions was something different entirely. Sarah documented everything: wind speed changes by hour, temperature shifts throughout the day, humidity variations, and even tiny differences in air pressure that could affect bullet path. I've never seen anyone prepare for a shot like this, commented Captain Stevens, the SEAL sniper who would be Sarah's spotter for the mission. It's like watching someone design a space mission instead of planning a sniper engagement. Sarah's preparation revealed something that previous mission planning had missed. The extreme range that made conventional approaches impossible also created opportunities. The target location's defensive advantages assumed threats from normal engagement distances. No one had considered the possibility of effective fire from beyond 3,000 meters, because such shots were considered impossible under operational conditions. 3 days into the deployment, weather conditions aligned with Sarah's calculated optimal shooting window. The team moved to the selected firing position under cover of darkness, a rocky outcrop that provided both concealment and the elevation necessary for the extreme range shot. Sarah spent an hour setting up her equipment with mechanical precision. The modified Barrett was positioned on a custom shooting rest that eliminated factors that could affect accuracy. Her weather monitoring instruments provided live data on environmental conditions. Most importantly, she had pre-calculated shooting solutions for multiple scenarios based on possible changes in conditions. As dawn approached, Sarah began her final preparation. The target would be visible for approximately 15 minutes during his routine morning inspection of the compound perimeter. Intelligence indicated this was the only predictable window when the individual would be in an exposed position suitable for engagement. Through her scope, Sarah could barely make out the target area. At 3,247 meters, even with the most advanced optics available, target identification required perfect atmospheric conditions and exceptional visual sharpness. Sarah had trained for months to develop the skills necessary to effectively engage targets at such distances. Wind reading, Sarah asked Stevens, who was monitoring environmental conditions through his spotting scope. Variable between 8 and 12 knots from the northwest, shifting slightly every few minutes, Stevens replied. Temperature holding steady, humidity dropping as expected. Sarah consulted her shooting data one final time, making tiny adjustments to her scope settings based on the current conditions. The mathematics involved in calculating bullet path at this distance were complex beyond what most people could understand. Bullet drop alone would be nearly 40 feet, requiring precise elevation adjustment. Wind push could move the bullet several feet sideways. Temperature and humidity effects on bullet velocity had to be calculated to fractions of a percent. Target in position, Stevens announced quietly. Sarah settled into her shooting position, controlling her breathing and heart rate through techniques perfected during months of training. At this distance, Even the slight movement caused by her pulse could affect shot placement. Everything had to be perfect. The target appeared as a tiny figure through her scope, barely distinguishable from the surrounding terrain. Sarah had to rely on intelligence photos and Stevens' spotting to confirm target identification. This represented another challenge of extreme long-range shooting that training scenarios could never fully replicate. Range confirmed at 3,247 meters, Stevens whispered. Wind holding steady at 10 knots northwest. Sarah made her final scope adjustment, a tiny movement that represented calculations involving dozens of factors. Her breathing settled into the rhythm she had practiced thousands of times. The trigger squeeze would have to be perfect, smooth, straight back with no disturbance to the rifle's position. Time seemed frozen as Sarah completed her final aim point check. Through her scope, she could see the target moving through his predictable routine. In approximately 30 seconds, he would pause at the position that offered the best engagement opportunity. Sarah's fingers settled on the trigger with the gentle pressure that had become automatic after months of training. Her mathematical mind performed one final check of the shooting solution, while her body maintained the precise position necessary for accuracy at this impossible distance. The moment of truth had arrived. Everything Sarah had learned, every hour of training, every mathematical calculation, and every methodical preparation had led to this single shot. At 3,247 meters, she was attempting something that would either establish a new world record or confirm the practical limitations of long-range precision shooting. Stevens watched through his spotting scope, ready to call the shot impact and provide immediate feedback. Morrison and the rest of the team maintained security while monitoring radio communications for any sign that the mission had been compromised. Sarah's world narrowed to the fundamentals that had been drilled into her consciousness during training: sight picture, breathing, trigger control, follow-through. At this distance, there would be a several-second delay between the shot and impact during which anything could happen to affect the outcome. The target moved into the optimal position for engagement. Sarah's crosshairs settled precisely on her calculated aim point. Her breathing reached the natural pause between inhale and exhale that provided maximum stability. The trigger broke cleanly with no disturbance to the rifle's position. The Barrett's sharp crack echoed across the mountainous terrain as Sarah fired the shot that would determine whether months of training and preparation had been sufficient to overcome the challenges of extreme long-range precision shooting under operational conditions. For Sarah, time seemed frozen as she maintained her shooting position, waiting for Stevens to call the impact. At 3,247 meters, even sound traveled slowly enough that the impact would occur before they heard it. Everything now depended on the precision of her calculations and the perfection of her shot execution. The next few seconds would determine whether Sarah Chen had just established herself among the most elite precision shooters in military history, or whether the distance had finally proven beyond the reach of current technology and human capability. Impact confirmed, Stevens whispered into his radio, his voice carrying a note of disbelief that he tried to suppress. Target down. Clean hit center mass. Sarah remained in her shooting position, maintaining the follow-through that had become instinctive during her training. At 3,247 meters, the bullet had taken nearly 4 seconds to reach its target, a time delay that seemed eternal while waiting for confirmation. The mathematical precision required to place a projectile accurately across such a distance under field conditions represented something that most experts would have considered impossible. Morrison's voice crackled through their communication system. Confirm distance and document everything. This needs to be verified by multiple sources. Stevens was already recording the exact range measurement, environmental conditions, and time data that would be required for official verification of what had just occurred. The implications of Sarah's shot extended far beyond the immediate mission success. She had just achieved what appeared to be the longest confirmed sniper elimination in military history, surpassing previous records by a significant margin. As the team began their extraction process, Sarah methodically documented her shooting data with the same systematic approach that had characterized her entire preparation. Wind speed, temperature, humidity, altitude, and exact range measurements were all recorded in the detailed log that would become part of the official record. The return journey to the forward operating base provided time for the reality of what had happened to begin settling in. Sarah had approached the shot as a complex mathematical problem to be solved, focusing on the technical requirements rather than the historic implications. Now, as the adrenaline faded, she began to understand that her life had just changed in ways she was only beginning to grasp. Morrison was already coordinating the verification process that would be required to officially confirm the record. Military protocol demanded extensive documentation for any claim of exceptional performance, especially one that exceeded previous records by such a significant margin. Multiple witnesses, environmental data, photographic evidence, and detailed technical analysis would all be required. Back at the base, Word of the successful mission had spread through the special operations community with remarkable speed. Sarah found herself suddenly the focus of attention from officers and enlisted personnel who had previously barely acknowledged her presence. The transformation from unknown communications specialist to record-holding sniper had occurred in the space of a single shot. The formal debriefing process took several days, during which every aspect of Sarah's shot was analyzed and documented. Flight experts calculated and verified the path data. Environmental specialist confirmed the atmospheric condition. Range verification was conducted using multiple measurement systems to ensure accuracy. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who had mentored Sarah during her training, captured the significance of what had occurred. In 23 years of special operations, I've seen exceptional shooters accomplish remarkable things. But what Sarah achieved represents something beyond exceptional performance. She approached an impossible problem with scientific precision and solved it through pure technical mastery. The verification process revealed details about Sarah's shot that made it even more remarkable. The environmental conditions had been challenging, with variable winds and significant atmospheric effects due to the altitude and terrain. The target itself had been partially obscured by natural vegetation, requiring precise placement to ensure effective engagement. Most significantly, analysis of Sarah's shooting data showed that her shot had been placed within inches of her calculated optimal impact point. This level of precision at extreme range suggested that her success hadn't been the result of luck or favorable conditions, but rather the product of exceptional skill applied through methodical preparation. James Mitchell, the military's leading flight expert, was brought in to analyze the technical aspects of Sarah's achievement. His report would become part of the permanent record documenting what was officially confirmed as the longest sniper shot in military history. Sergeant Chen's accomplishment represents a convergence of several factors that rarely align. Dr. Mitchell explained during his analysis briefing: exceptional natural ability, advanced technical knowledge, systematic training methods, and optimal equipment configuration. Most importantly, her mathematical approach to flight patterns allowed her to achieve precision at a range where intuitive shooting methods become inadequate. The official confirmation process took 3 weeks, during which Sarah continued her normal duties, while military bureaucracy worked through the verification requirements. When the confirmation finally came, it was accompanied by a level of attention that Sarah hadn't anticipated. News of the record shot spread beyond military channels, attracting interest from civilian shooting sports organizations, equipment manufacturers, and media outlets specializing in military affairs. Sarah's achievement represented not just a military accomplishment, but a breakthrough in the technical possibilities of long-range precision shooting. Morrison found himself handling requests from various organizations wanting to interview Sarah or arrange demonstrations of her capability. The attention was both gratifying recognition of exceptional performance and a potential security concern that required careful management. "How do you feel about suddenly being famous?" Morrison asked during one of their regular meetings about Sarah's career development. "Honestly, sir, I'm more interested in understanding how to apply these capabilities operationally than in dealing with publicity," Sarah replied. "The shot was successful because we treated it as a technical problem that could be solved through proper preparation. I'd like to continue developing those methods." Morrison wasn't surprised by Sarah's response. Her focus on technical mastery, rather than recognition, had been consistent throughout her training and operational deployment. This attitude made her valuable not just as a precision shooter, but as someone who could potentially train others in the methodical methods that had made her success possible. The military began exploring ways to incorporate Sarah's analytical approach into advanced sniper training program. Her mathematical methods for calculating complex flight solutions could potentially improve the capabilities of other precision shooters, extending effective engagement ranges across special operations unit. Sarah was promoted to staff sergeant and officially reassigned to a special operations unit, where her unique capabilities could be properly utilized. Her new position involved not just operational missions, but also development of advanced training methods and equipment testing for extreme long-range application. The record shot had also attracted attention from equipment manufacturers interested in Sarah's modifications to the Barrett platform. Her methodical approach to optimizing rifle accuracy had resulted in innovations that could benefit both military and civilian precision shooting applications. 6 months after achieving the record, Sarah found herself back at the range where Morrison had first observed her practicing. But now she was there in an official capacity, conducting training for a select group of special operations snipers, who were learning her methodical approach to extreme long-range shooting. The key to consistent success at extended ranges is treating every shot as a unique mathematical problem, Sarah explained to her students. Environmental conditions, equipment factors,
and target characteristics all create a complex equation that must be solved precisely for each engagement. Her teaching methods reflected the same analytical precision that had characterized her own development. Students learned not just shooting techniques, but the mathematical principles that govern bullet flight at extreme distance. Sarah's classroom sessions included extensive flight theory alongside practical range training. Morrison often observed these training sessions, watching as Sarah passed on the knowledge and methods that had made her achievement possible. Her ability to break down complex flight concepts into understandable components was proving as valuable as her shooting skills. She's not just an exceptional shooter, Morrison noted in his evaluation reports. Sarah has developed teaching methods that are improving the long-range capabilities of our entire sniper program. Her systematic approach is creating a new standard for precision shooting training. The impact of Sarah's record extended beyond military application. Civilian competitive shooters began adopting her mathematical methods for calculating long-range solutions. Equipment manufacturers incorporated her modifications into new rifle designs. Her achievement had advanced the entire field of precision shooting. 2 years after that first meeting on the range, Sarah received news that would represent the culmination of her remarkable journey. She was selected for assignment to an elite counterterrorism unit, where her unique capabilities would be applied to missions requiring the highest levels of precision and technical expertise. The assignment came with a promotion to Sergeant First Class and recognition as one of the military's leading experts in extreme long-range precision application. Her record shot at 3,247 meters remained unbroken, but more importantly, her methods had been integrated into training programs that were improving capabilities across the Special Operations community. Morrison, now promoted to captain and assigned to Special Operations Command, had the satisfaction of seeing his intuition about Sarah's potential fully realized. The young communications specialist he had first observed practicing with a Barrett rifle had developed into one of the military's most valuable precision shooting assets. Sarah's story became legendary within special operations circles, not just for the record she had achieved, but for the methodical approach that had made it possible. Her transformation from communications specialist to elite sniper represented what could be accomplished when exceptional natural ability was combined with scientific methods and dedicated training. The range where Morrison had first encountered Sarah continued to serve as a training facility, but it now included equipment and methods that reflected her innovations in precision shooting. New students learned flight calculations alongside shooting techniques, following the integrated approach that Sarah had pioneered. For Sarah herself, the record shot remained just one milestone in an ongoing journey of technical development and operational application. Her mathematical mind continued to find new problems to solve within the field of precision shooting, always seeking ways to extend the boundaries of what was considered possible. The Barrett rifle that had been her training companion was eventually retired to a place of honor, its custom modifications and documented history serving as a testament to what could be achieved through methodical pursuit of technical excellence. Sarah had moved on to newer platforms and more challenging applications, but the foundation of analytical precision that had made her famous continued to guide her approach to every mission. Morrison's decision to approach an unknown soldier practicing on the range that morning had changed both their careers in ways neither could have anticipated. Sarah's achievement proved that exceptional performance could emerge from unexpected places when the right combination of ability, opportunity, and methodical development aligned. The record shot at 3,247 meters stood as more than just a military accomplishment. It represented the power of applying scientific methods to practical challenges, the value of systematic training over intuitive approaches, and the remarkable results that could be achieved when mathematical precision was combined with exceptional skill. Sarah Chen had established herself not just as a record holder but as an innovator, whose methods continued to influence precision shooting long after her historic achievement. Her story demonstrated that the boundaries of human performance could be extended through the application of analytical thinking to physical skills, creating new possibilities that previous generations would have considered impossible.